Welcome to the football show on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. I'm Peter Martin, Alison McConnell, Tam McManus here with me in the studio. Lots to talk about, European football and domestic issues as well. Here's what's coming up.
Here's what's coming up on today's show, sponsored by Arnold Clark Rewards. Brendan Rodgers says if his squad doesn't improve over the summer, it could prompt an exit for the Celtic boss from the Parkhead side. Barry Ferguson admits replacing Jack Butland with Liam Kelly in last night's game against Athletic Bilbao was one of the toughest calls he's had to make. Stephen Robinson says the Buddies are not the team under pressure going into this weekend. And Neil Critchley believes that a top 6 finish for Hearts is a key way to attract talent to the squad.
Yeah, that's just a few of the topics. You can give us your point of view on this weekend's fixtures on the Saturday and the Sunday. Who do you think is going to get that top 6 place? And of course, then suddenly you have to look at the bottom 6 and wonder who's going to try and avoid the playoff and who's going to get relegated. All to play for, and I presume Neil Doncaster well happy that everything is alive in that division. Give us your thoughts on that, but our first port of call is, of course, Ibrox last night, where Rangers held Bilbao to a 0-0 draw. And the reason I say they held them is because there were 10 men for 3/4 of that game, Tam. It was an unbelievable effort by Rangers.
Yeah, it was. I think if you'd have offered the Rangers fans and the players and the staff that after 20 minutes, they'd have taken it. I thought they defended really, really strongly. They rode their luck at times. But, really good performance, stayed in the tie. Obviously at the end, the penalty save from Liam Kelly, which could be pivotal in the tie. He'd come in and done really, really well, kept a clean sheet. So, no, I think if you're a Rangers supporter, you're delighted with the result and you can go over to Spain still in the tie and with a chance. And we've seen Rangers away from home this season. I think they're probably better, more equipped to play away from home. And if they put a performance in like they've done in Turkey, then they can go and try and get through into the semi-final.
Yeah, I'm not in any way going to diminish the enormity of the task that Rangers are facing, or indeed the quality of opposition in Athletic Bilbao, because in their own backyard, with the incentive of knowing the Europa League final is going to be there, Alison, then Athletic Bilbao will clearly have the advantage. But I'll tell you, I agree with Tam. I fancy Rangers to do something here. That you can't write them off. You never know what you get.
Yeah, I don't think you could write them off if you just look at the evidence of recent European campaigns and the scalps that they've taken on the road. I think they'll feel emboldened going into that second leg. Just the manner in which they restricted Bilbao. You'd have to say too, although there was a penalty save and there was a couple of saves just towards the end of the first half, I didn't think Liam Kelly had too much to do across the course of the campaign, the course of the game. If you think that Bilbao had a numerical advantage playing for so long against 10 men, there weren't too many times where they really carved Rangers open and left them exposed. I think Rangers worked very hard, obviously, just to restrict the space, just to try and minimise any opportunities. But I think Rangers will feel heartened by the way that they restricted them, and they'll go over and they'll just try and stick to a game plan that you've seen from them repeatedly. They'll try and contain Bilbao, they'll try and hit them in the break, and Rangers have menace on the break at times. Dessers actually had a good chance last night too, and then a couple of set pieces just towards the end. They've always got that in their locker, and I think they'll fancy themselves too. I think they'll believe that there's scope to go and do something.
Yeah, okay, let's cut to the chase then. Robin Proper, was it a red?
Yes. I think he's last man, Peter. Obviously, if it was in the box, then I think you can't send him off. It's double jeopardy, but he was outside the box. He was clean through for me. Goal scoring opportunity. And the referee, by the letter of the law, has got to send him off. And I think Rangers actually played better with 10 men with him off the park. Because again, he's let the team down. He has in several other games. And Barry must be pulling his head out with him because an experienced player getting done like that on the edge of the box turned, and it shouldn't happen. And listen, his teammates bailed him out, Peter. They kept him in the tie, but yeah, it was definitely a red card for me.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because sometimes I think when you listen across all quarters to whether it's a red or not, sometimes people just let their passion and bias get in the way of what is a decision which is part of the rules. I mean, I know some people are calling for rules to be changed because they don't like what the referee decided last night, but I mean, give me peace, it's a red card. What I think will infuriate Barry Ferguson is Barry made some really brave decisions in his team selection, and then it gets kicked right out of the window after 12 minutes.
Yeah, I think I think at that point you feared for Rangers. I think when they went down to 10 men so early in the game, you wondered what was going to lie ahead for them. I think it was a red too. I think on first viewing I thought it was harsh. In real time I thought it was harsh. When I watched it back and saw it again, I thought it was a definite red card. But yeah, I think he'd be frustrated at the cheapness of it. I think just a moment of skill and Proper was caught out by it. I thought he looked really clumsy, very rash. But it gave Rangers an uphill mountain at that point in the game to go and climb, and they had to change it about. They had to make sure they were sitting in and just restricting Bilbao and working their socks off across the middle of the park. And I think they'd done that. I think that, under the cosh for large points in terms of not having the ball and letting Bilbao have the ball, have possession, without them really creating too many big chances within that game. Yeah,
I think the keeper needs to be credited with, a safe pair of hands. He made a couple of saves. Some of them, obviously, people will think, that was for the cameras, but he still had to make the saves, which kind of, I think, calmed the nerves of the team. It was a tough decision on Jack Butland, one that the manager acknowledged after the game.
One of the toughest things I've had to do. Firstly, I think Jack Butland is a top goalkeeper. Secondly, I've got a very, very good relationship with Jack. I've known Jack a long time. He was a young kid coming through at Birmingham when I went down to play for Birmingham in the Premier League. And thirdly, I've got to know it's hurting Jack, and I've got to be mindful of that as well, because I care for him. So I just had to make a decision, and it was a tough decision. When I spoke to him, I could see he was hurting.
We have had Barry as a pundit on our programme, Tam, for 3 years. I just think he conducts himself so well, pre-match, post-match, in situations where they've been woeful. He's not in any way trying to fudge the issue. He's just saying that's not a Rangers team. It needs to be consistent. They need to do more. Last night, it was one of those things where he was basically saying, well, listen, that is a Rangers team, but that's the base level that you should be doing every week.
Yeah, I think he's very honest, Peter. I think you've seen that in several games, whether they've played well, he's gave the team praise, and when they've been poor, he's said they were poor. He doesn't hide behind anything or cliches that some managers do, and he's been pretty refreshing, to be honest, in that job. Big call for him. I think myself and Alison called it during the week that they would change the goalkeeper, and they did change it, and I thought he was excellent, Peter. And I thought at the end of the game it was good to see Butland was the first person over to him. I thought that showed a lot of class. Some people, some outfield players, probably strikers, maybe wouldn't do that. They're going away in a huff, but goalkeepers union, they're tight, and they went over. And I get dropped and the guy came in and scored the winner for me out of the tunnel, raging.
Yeah. Have you ever spoken to Anthony Stokes when he replaced Stuart Falkirk?
No, I haven't. No. Stokesy scored about 16 goals, and I watched all of them for the bench, but. I think that showed a lot of class, Peter, at the end of the game. That he went up and was the first guy to congratulate Liam Kelly on a clean sheet and a great performance. So that shows you the measure of Jack Butland as well. So I thought Barry spoke well there, handled it well. Listen, nobody wants to be dropped for big games, but I just felt he'd lost the trust of the supporters, particularly at Ibrox, and I thought it was the right call and it's worked for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And over and above that, there are issues which obviously later on in the game left me slightly bemused. I mean, I have to say, although we didn't even get to the point whether they were going to call the goal offside, I must admit, I didn't think it was a penalty. I didn't think it was a penalty because that ball's coming over his head. He doesn't know. He's naturally going for the ball. I thought it was brutally harsh. I thought it was harsh too. However, I did think that in the current climate, you're probably going to give it. You're probably going to have it given against you. Just if you go back to what we've seen, decisions like that have been given since the introduction of VAR and the kind of tweak around the rule. I wasn't overly surprised that it was given, I would have to say. Yeah, Tam, when you're a striker, you could see the way he's running towards the wall, and then you're a defender, and you're just trying. If you can't get your head on it, he's looking. I don't think he sees anything behind him. You know, it's not as if he's consciously gone and and taken the ball in a different direction. I thought it was
harsh as well, Peter. But there was no intent from him to handball it. But if you look at it from the referee side, official side, if he doesn't flick his hand, does that guy take a touch and get a shot and goal? I think that's probably the key aspect of it for me. Is probably yes. I think that just deflects it and the boy takes a touch. Whereas if it doesn't hit his hand, I think he maybe takes a touch by Sterling and gets the shot away. So yeah, I thought it was pretty harsh on Rangers, but they'll believe justice was done with the keeper saving it and a poor penalty. And Alison mentioned it earlier, I don't think they created an awful lot of chances. I think the last 3 games Bilbao have played have been 0-0s. So they don't concede many and they don't tend to score many. So if Rangers get the first goal over there, the pressure is massive on them because their fans will be expecting them not only to win at home against Rangers, but to go and win the tournament in their own backyard. Yeah,
you mentioned, and I've chatted to you so many times about it, you taking penalty kicks. Are you a down the middle person or are you a corner high?
I tried to place a couple earlier in my career, Peter, and I missed a couple. One against Rangers at Ibrox that I tried to place, and then I just went for power down the middle.
Did you?
But the one last night wasn't really any power on it. It was just kind of, I don't know if I mishit it, but keeper's kicked his leg up. It's a poor penalty, Peter. I think if you're going to go down the middle, you hit it high, you hit it firm. But I don't think he done that, and he let the keeper, get his legs up and save it. But poor penalty. And I thought after that, Rangers seen the game out quite comfortably. But I think it's a real chance missed from Bilbao's point of view of taking a lead back to Spain. But listen, Rangers can go there and get the first goal. As I said, the pressure's enormous on them. Yeah,
Liam Kelly, as you can imagine, after the match, talking to everyone, just ecstatic at what unfolded for him.
Oh well, I've had much better games in terms of stuff to do. In terms of the actual general feeling, right up there. I've been here my whole life. Came to Rangers as an 8-year-old and then to play in a European quarter-final, save a penalty and draw 0-0 out of 10 men. It's an incredible feeling. I might not seem too happy, but it's only because it's half time. You know what I mean? I can't be like pure jumping about and then something happens, we get beat next week. That's not what we want. I want to grind again, want to dig in again the way Rangers do, and keep listening to the gaffer's message. Him, Neil McCann, Billy Dodge, Sam, they all give us great messages. So tactically we were really good tonight, probably even better with 10 men, and we've managed to stay alive in the tie, and that's the most important thing.
Yeah, that's what you call a classic custard pie to your teammate, or better with 10 men. Thank you for that, Liam. But the overall performance on it. We've analysed Rangers, what they did right, the big decisions from the manager, the players who turned up and absolutely worked their socks off. Flip side, Athletic Bilbao. Now they knocked out Roma. They've beaten Real Madrid at home earlier in the season. They were unbeaten in the last 4 or 5 games, Ali. And everybody was raving about the Williams brothers and what they were going to do to Rangers. I'm loath to kind of be heavily critical of them because in their own backyard they might be a different animal. But I am with Tam on this. I just think I thought for all their creativity that everybody was talking about, it didn't really materialise. Rangers looked okay with them.
I think when you look at where they are in La Liga, they're sitting 4th. You expected a bit more from them. I think they look quite pedestrian at points. I would agree. I think they're a team who will have designs on winning this tournament. I think they'll fancy themselves to go and get to the final. And I think I just thought it was a fairly lacklustre performance last night at Ibrox. And it was funny when the penalty was awarded, and obviously there was this huge delay before you got there because the goal had been chopped off and the referee had to go and look at the monitor, and it just seemed to take forever before he came to the conclusion that it was a penalty. And then Ibrox it just was an uproar. The noise was phenomenal, and I think players, particularly experienced players, are never entirely intimidated by playing in that kind of environment. But as he stepped up to take the penalty and all the noise going on round about him, I thought he did look nervous. I thought it didn't look...
Do you think his bottle crashed?
I don't know if it was as much his bottle crash as his concentration was maybe affected, but I thought it was a poor penalty, and I think you could sense it in the build-up as he was going to take it. I thought his body language and everything just didn't look particularly confident, and I think that was just epitomised by the performance in general from Bilbao.
Yeah, okay.
I've been in that guy's shoes.
Yeah.
The noise is incredible. I took 1-2 each for Hibs against Rangers
Bottle crashed?
Aye, nearly never reached the goal.
Yeah, were you like the guy just behind? were you like the guy just behind Russell Crowe in Gladiator?
Aye, a bottle went. I mean, the noise just when I put the ball down and then stepped back. You know, it was 2 each at the time, a big moment in the game, and the noise, and it's just my legs turned to jelly. But I sorted that out at Hampden when I blasted the one down the middle and we beat Rangers in the semi-final. So
yeah,
that was me trying to place it, and I agree with Ali. I think the guy looked a wee bit nervy going up to take it, and the noise.
The noise was phenomenal last night as he went to take it. It really was like everyone jeering and shouting and just trying to distract him and put him off. And I do think, you know, if you're a big time player, I think like you're used to that and you learn to adapt to it. But I did think that he looked quite nervous.
Yep. Okay. So, give us your thoughts. Are they going to go through? What did you make of the performance last night? What about those big decisions? We can only call it as we see it and try to be as balanced as we possibly can. You can give us your view on it as well. Thank you to so many of you for giving us your opinion on this. And of course, obviously, as ever, we like a bit of banter with you and want you to enjoy it. Obviously, people mentioning Ali. Bowden must have a sale on because obviously you're looking resplendent in your summery dress, whereas you and I have gone for tried and trusted dull on a sunny summer's day, Tam.
You know, looking well today.
She's absolutely
Unusually.
Only you could isolate that positive comment and take it the other way. So listen, give us your thoughts on all of the European campaign. I think they've got a real chance. I don't know. I'm going to stick my neck out and say it might go to extra time and penalties.
I think Bilbao will beat them at home, Peter. I think they're strong. Yeah. Far better at home. But I think it'll be a tight game. But maybe 2-1 to Bilbao. I think they'll go through. But I fancied Bilbao last night, and they weren't up to much. So they need to improve heavily, and for the next tie to go through.
Yeah, it could be what Manchester United or Lyon in the semis.
I think it's just expect the unexpected when Rangers play in Europe.
Yeah.
You never know.
It's a Jekyll and Hyde, isn't it?
Totally different.
Yeah. Stephen Hawkins is sitting somewhere trying to work Rangers out just now.
Yeah.
You know, like the domestic form versus European form. I think there's just something about them when it goes into Europe. There's a particular kind of alchemy with these Thursday nights under the lights that they seem to turn up and relish the occasion. I don't know if there's just a freedom in those games, but I think it's very, very difficult to call. I wouldn't be surprised if it went to extra time. Yeah.
Where did you pull Stephen Hawkins from when you're... That's not just so unlike you. Could you not think of Einstein? Anyway, give us your thoughts on it. Now, listen, from European campaign, we switch our attention. Can I just mention one other little thing? I've just got to mention it because we never get a chance to talk about it. Just before we go into the weekend, if you've never taken a free kick before, Tam, and then you suddenly step up and say, listen, I'm going to have this one and I might have the next one as well. I mean, I've never on social media witnessed the avalanche of every angle on your man Declan Rice's free kicks. They were unbelievable, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. I think they're probably the two best I've seen. Lee Griffiths will obviously argue with his two in a key game, but his second one was just out with this world. It's right in the postie stamp. And
did you jump off the couch?
I couldn't believe it. I was just shaking my head the second one.
Yeah.
I thought he's confident, his tail's up, he scored one. Maybe score again, but the way he's whipped it in the wall in the top corner.
Curl, just an absolute bend on that.
It was a tremendous goal. The last time I seen a swerve like that was Roberto Carlos.
Yeah.
La Tournoi. Yeah, absolutely. Great goal. Second one, just out of this world. It was absolutely fantastic. Listen, we love our Scottish football. We love the fact that, we get a chance to moan and say change the league and get 14 or 16 into it. Don't keep the status quo. Then there's the threat of 10. But the one thing that Neil Doncaster will be saying right now is, listen, this weekend is nail-biting stuff and it has huge implications for everyone. It's up for grabs. So, with that in mind, Motherwell need to beat Hearts and hope that St Mirren don't win to seal the top 6 for Motherwell. St Mirren need to beat Ross County and hope Hearts don't beat Motherwell to seal the top 6. And if Hearts defeat Motherwell, they'll seal top 6 regardless of all the other results. There's your permutations. Fir Park, Motherwell against Hearts. It's going to be an absolute belter. I'm going to be there. You're going to be there. Blair's going to be there. Everybody's going to be there. It's going to be really exciting and nail-biting.
Yeah, I think it's a huge game. I think the pressure is really all on Hearts to get that top 6 place. I think, you look at the resources that Hearts have as a club compared to Motherwell and compared to St Mirren, they should be in the top 6. I think where they are just now is maybe just indicative of how poorly they started the campaign. But yeah, I think they obviously are in a position of strength. You know, it's theirs really. They know if they go and get the win, they're not reliant on results going elsewhere. They know if they turn up at Fir Park and win the game, then they've sealed the top 6 spot. But I just wonder about the psychology of this one. I wonder if St Mirren score early against Ross County and the result starts to filter back to Fir Park, just what that might do for the nerves within the Hibs camp, within the Hearts camp, because I think they know, you know, the onus is on them to go and get that top 6 place.
Yeah, sorry Ali, I was listening to you there. It was quite unnerving actually touching Tam's chest as I'm trying to find his microphone.
See any hairs there?
There are no hairs. But he's finally got it back. Somebody just said to me, I don't think we can hear Tam, where's his mic, you know? And it was just unnerving to be perfectly honest with you. So,
Is it happening on a Friday afternoon?
yeah, well, that's exactly it. That's a good bit of noise up here. And here's the lines from it. Kenny, who's a big Dons fan, says Hearts can't win big games. Where's the great Shankland? Well,
He'll be back in tomorrow, I would think, the way Wilson's out.
Yeah, so it's an interesting one. I watched them last week. Dundee United got the win at Tynecastle. And Shank was on the bench last weekend. So clearly the manager is, you know, he can waffle away and tell you that he's just given him a rest. He's had a lot of minutes. That's rubbish. He's now thinking to himself, I'm looking at next year and he's not going to be here.
Yeah, I think he realises that Lawrence Shankland's going to leave and under freedom of contract. I think he's at an age now where he can go and pick his final move, big move. Whether his agent's got something lined up, we don't know. I don't think he'll sign another deal at Hearts. So, but they'll need him tomorrow. They'll need him tomorrow, big time. They need to go and win that game. They need goals, and obviously the lad James Wilson's out suspended, so he'll come in beside Cabangu and probably play 2 up front. So we'll have to wait and see. But I fancy Hearts, Peter. I think you're saying St Mirren. If it comes through that St Mirren are winning, that would affect Motherwell. I think Motherwell will need St Mirren not to win, and them to win. So I just fancy Hearts strongly here. I think they'll win.
You know what's great about it? It's all to play for because Ross County cannot afford to continue this slip. So there's nobody in a dead rubber here. Everybody's got something to play for because the points are so critical. The other aspect of it, which I genuinely hope doesn't happen, is for VAR to become instrumental in a decision which incenses, either manager on the day or indeed over at St Mirren's Park. Obviously, Michael Wimmer has been talking about the fact that they reckon they've had 8 decisions this season that have really kind of gone against the Fir Park outfit.
A hit and nobody sees it, then it's for me okay. But I think
we'll come back to
we
Michael
should give
Wimmer in a minute.
the referee the responsibility to be the man on the to have the confidence and to be the man on the pitch who takes the decision.
No, we can't. So we'll tell you that he said, I'm not a fan of VAR. I'm not going to do a German accent because I'm not really good at it, but he's not a fan of it.
Yeah, and I think there'll be a few in that camp, St Mirren too. I think they feel particularly aggrieved with the number of decisions that have gone against them this season. And I think when you look at it and you count up how many points you might feel as though you've been robbed of, so to speak, had decisions gone elsewhere, then I think it can be very frustrating, particularly when teams get to this point when you're just on the cusp of a top 6 place and the financial rewards that then go hand in hand with that. And similarly, if you find yourself down near the bottom end of the table, if you're in a position where relegation is part of the conversation at this stage of the season and you feel as though VAR decisions have cost you points and gone against you, it's very, very hard to stomach, I think, just because it has a very lasting effect on the finances of the club.
I know over in Germany, all of Michael Wimmer's family watch the show religiously. They're big fans of PLZ in Germany. So here's Michael Wimmer.
In the end, to be honest, I said the same in Austria. I'm not a fan from the VAR because I think the VAR is important, but only for onside and for offside, and perhaps if somewhere is a hit and nobody sees it, then it's for me okay. But I think we should give the referee the responsibility to be the man to have the confidence and to be the man on the pitch who takes the decision.
I agree with him, and I think it should be done quicker. And I think if you look at Rangers last night, the delay is that's just the evidence of right across this season. I was at Tynecastle, takes an eternity to make a decision. It's absolutely something that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, it does. It needs to be quicker, Peter. No doubt about that. I agree with him on the offsides and onsides. I think that is a key one for me. I think that's got to be in play for VAR. In terms of looking at tackles and all that again, I think he's right. Just let the referee referee the game. If the referee sees it on the pitch, gives a red card, then it's a red card. Gives a booking, it's a booking. You can't then go to a TV screen and have guys in the studio going, listen, you need to go and take a look at that again because they're re-refereeing the game. So, yeah, I totally agree with him. And plus, I think it's sapping the enjoyment out of the game for fans. I think you're at a game and like that last night, 3-4 minutes to get a decision on a penalty. You think you've got away with the offside, then it's a penalty kick that nobody's seen. So, yeah, and the goals in terms of celebrating last-minute winners and all that. People are, if you score in the last minute, you're ecstatic. Now you're just sitting in your hands thinking, well, it might be chopped off.
Your first instinct, I think, with a goal now is to wait.
You wait, because you don't want to ask yourself. I was wanting VAR in a couple of seasons ago before it came in, but now I'd be happy to see the back of it, to be honest.
Yeah, what does Neil Critchley, the Hearts boss, think of this weekend's game against Motherwell?
Different way of playing. And they've had some positive results. So we're expecting a tough game. A little bit more front-footed, if you like. A little bit more pressing from the front. And they're a difficult team to play against. And they've had some good results. They've backed that up. So we know it'll be a tough game away from home tomorrow.
I'm going to go Hearts 2-1.
I'm going to go Hearts 2-1 as well.
Hearts 2-1 as well, yeah.
Yeah, okay. St Mirren against Ross County. We've got reporters there as well for this one. Really looking forward to it. Ross County, I think we had them at least in the playoff with St Johnstone going down. But listen, we could all end up with egg in our faces. Who did you predict? What did you think was going to happen? St Mirren need to beat Ross County and obviously hope Hearts don't beat Motherwell. Stephen Robinson didn't really want to be embroiled in all the permutations.
We win the game. As I say, we're not talking too much about top six. Top six will take care of itself, depending on things that we can't really influence. The only thing we can influence is winning the game. And as I keep repeating myself, if we win the game, we'll go on 41 points. So that is a massive achievement, and as you've rightly pointed out, gives you a little bit of breathing space from the bottom. If it manages to get us into the top six, then we'll have a very good night.
Yeah, I mean, if they get into the top six, the St Mirren boys should be going out, putting Stephen Robinson on their shoulders and saying, brilliant boss, because to get them in 3 years in the trot would be unbelievable, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be. I think when you look at the size of the club and the budget that they've got, they shouldn't really be in the top six. I think they're punching above their weight. They have done for 2 or 3 seasons now. I think he's a really, really good manager. I think he's very straightforward in his tactics and how he speaks to players and how he play. Everybody knows what they're doing, they're organised and they're physical. And, at the end of every season, he kind of loses his best players and he somehow, gets a wee gem up for maybe England or somewhere or abroad. So his recruitment's been good as well. So he's right, listen, just win the game, see what happens. You can't control the other game. If you win the game, you get in the top six, brilliant. If you don't, then you've got that wee bit of breathing space at the bottom. But I just think that, obviously, I think the team that finishes sixth is going to finish sixth because there's no chance of catching Dundee United, Aberdeen or Hibs. So I think the key thing for me is if you're sixth, you don't need to worry about getting relegated. You might end up with less points than the team that gets down, but you're in the top six, and I think that's a big relief for teams. I think when you look at Motherwell, if Motherwell finish in the bottom six, they could get dragged into a relegation battle. Same with St Mirren. So yeah, it's you're wanting top six for financial reasons, but I think in terms of you don't need to worry what's behind you, I think is very, very key as well.
Yeah, absolutely, which is why a lot of people have been calling for change, just this whole ruthless nature of it. St Mirren, Motherwell, 4 points above what could potentially be a playoff place.
Yeah.
And that's precarious, isn't it?
I think it's so tight at the bottom end, and I think you see what can happen when teams are fighting for their lives. You saw it with St Johnstone last weekend against Celtic, just upsetting the odds. I think when a team is hungry, You know, you've got something to fight for. There can be surprises along the route. I don't think anyone who's in that bottom 6 is safe from being dragged into it.
Yeah, although we'll get to Dundee eventually, but with Ross County, they're a point at this moment ahead of Dundee, so they really will have to go for it, because Dundee will be looking and saying, this is the chance for us to just flip it. You know, Simon Murray's on really great goal scoring for him. He's the danger. He can get us out of this mess.
I think you need something like that. I think if you look at teams that prevail and maybe just steer themselves away, and Simon Murray has experience in doing this before from when he was up in Dingwall with Ross County, I think you need that. You need a focal point. You need someone that can dig you out a hole, someone that can come up with goals, and I think Simon Murray might be the difference between Dundee staying up and not this season.
Yeah, and sometimes momentum. County, 3 straight defeats. This could be the 4th one.
Yeah, they've lost 4 of the last 5, Peter. Yeah, and they went on a really good run, Peter. You know, they had a couple of back-to-back wins that kind of took them away from the danger area. But yeah, they've been poor in recent weeks. I've seen them against Dundee United. They lost at home. They were really poor. And obviously losing to Aberdeen at home. That's 2 home games they've lost without scoring. So I think that would be concerning for them. They go away from home. They've been decent away from home this season. But I'd fancy St Mirren strongly here. I think at home, what's at stake for them? I think St Mirren will win the game comfortably, but I don't think it'll be enough. I think the Hearts will just pip them.
2-0 St Mirren.
3-0 St Mirren.
Yeah, I'm going to say St Mirren win. I'm going to say 2-0.
2-0. You were putting a real lot of thought into that.
Yeah, I was trying to remember what I'd said earlier.
God help us if we get back to the predictor next season, Ali, if you're going to put that much thought into it. Listen, we've gone through the permutations. Give us your thoughts on it. Who do you think is going to get the top 6? Who is going to be dragged into that playoff position? And of course, let's not write off St Johnstone as well. Okay, we talked about Rangers in Europe. Let's talk about Rangers heading to Pittodrie. It's a game that's got always that nice wee bit of spice. Some of it for the wrong reasons, I have to say. There's no love lost between the teams. Is there an advantage for Aberdeen on the fact that Rangers, 10 of them, absolutely gave their all? Barry Ferguson said at the post-match press conference he's going to have to make changes again.
Yeah, I think so. I think he'll rotate the squad. I think he'll bring fresh legs in. It was a real gruelling effort last night. I thought, to play 80 minutes with 10 men, it was against a quality outfit, a lot of running, and I think he'll bring players in. I've obviously lost Rice and Sterling to injuries, so they won't play. He'll freshen the team up with a big game ahead on Thursday, but I still think he'll go as strong as possible. I think that Barry knows this fixture. He knows what's at stake, what it means to the fans of both clubs, and he'll go up there wanting to win the game. But obviously the bigger picture is away from home in Spain in the following Thursday. But Aberdeen, for me, I've started just to hit a wee bit of form again. They're getting results. They're not playing well. Ross County last week 1-0, great result, wonderful goal. And I think they're capable of beating Rangers. It just depends what Rangers turn up. We've spoken about it all season. They're Jekyll and Hyde. If they turn up and it's Dr. Jekyll, then they might go and win. But if it's not, then they'll get beat. So I'm going to sit in the fence and go for a draw here. I think Aberdeen can get a point in a high-scoring game, 2 each.
Do you know? You said Dr. Jekyll. Do you know Hyde's first name? No. Ali, you're a reader of a lot of books. I would expect you to know. Don't worry, I don't know either. John Hyde. I don't know either, Ali. I thought you're bound to have read Jekyll and Hyde. But anyway, as far as
homework.
Yeah, absolutely. As far as the Dons are concerned, and this is why, we've got these games which get everybody excited at this point in the season. Aberdeen 4th, 1 point behind Hibs, who play Dundee on the Sunday. So they've got something to play for. The permutations of this game on the Sunday is basically if Rangers lose to Aberdeen and Celtic defeat Kilmarnock on the Saturday, then Celtic are officially crowned champions.
Yeah, and I think it would maybe encapsulate the way that the season is played out for Celtic. I think it would be quite an anticlimactic way to win it, almost. I think having it handed to you without being there in front of your own supporters. I think it's been an odd few months for Celtic. I think since the Bayern Munich defeat in the Champions League campaign came to an end, I think there's just a sense of them coasting in some ways. I think it just looks as though it's dipped hugely.
Yeah.
A bit of bite going out of the season for them.
It's the only flat thing in the league
Yeah,
is
it's
the
the
fact
top
that
end.
Celtic at the top end has just been, meandering towards it, off it,
No
winning
tension.
games, nothing that's getting them any great praise, which I think, from Brendan Rodgers' point of view might be slightly miffed. We'll come to him in a minute on it. But the other games mean something because Aberdeen, we always go back to it. Aberdeen, if they had even sustained half of the wins, that they lost in that second period of the season, they would be in battling with Rangers, but they're not. And they'll be looking and thinking. In fact, Jimmy Tillene himself said, even with Rangers playing against Athletic Bilbao, there's never really a good time to take advantage of them.
No, I don't think so. I think they are focused on the game by game also, and we know about Aberdeen against Rangers is important for everyone. So I think they will be ready for the game. I think they have a good squad, and so they're gonna have good players on the pitch, whoever plays. So and also we. So I think it's gonna be a really intense, a really energetic game. So I think it's gonna be a good game.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good game. Sorry about the sound quality there on it. We did our absolute best. Somebody's just said to us there, thanks, Gary Connor. Gary, I really do hope that you're right. He said it's Edward Hyde. We'll look that up. We've got to check it. It's just one of those things that come into my brain there. Not a lot else. Aberdeen.
I'll go 2 each.
You think 2 each? Mm-hmm. Rangers tired? Yeah.
No result would surprise me, Peter. If Rangers turn up and play really well, they could win 3-0. If they don't, if they're rubbish, Aberdeen will beat them. You don't know what Rangers are going to get.
What do you get from Aberdeen?
I think you're getting a wee bit of consistency now, Peter.
Unbeaten in 5.
Yeah, I think since they lost down at Parkhead, they've been a decent run of form. I think they've had their blip. They've got a bit of confidence back. Kevin Nisbet's starting to play well and looks fitter. So they've got a bit more solid at the back as well, Peter. You're not conceding a lot of goals. So
only 1 defeat in 9.
Yep, I'll go for 2 each. But as I said, it could be any score.
Ali.
I think Rangers will win. I think the 2-1. I think they might just edge it. I think they'll want a positive result to take out to Spain on Thursday night. I don't think they'll want to hand Celtic the title. I think there's always an element of spice in this game. I think there's always a bit of niggle. I think they'll want to win it. I think they'll want to just build on Thursday night's display, and I think they'll edge it.
So many Aberdeen fans saying, please, Ali, don't back the Dons, because you never do. Was there, I don't know, I don't want to pry, but was there somebody who caused you a lot of pain in the Aberdeen area in the Granite City?
This is a myth that's built up.
It's only built up by Dons fans who listen to you every week. There's that there's always something in the background that subconsciously can affect you and you just go against them constantly.
She's just doesn't like Aberdeen, does she?
It's as simple as that, which is going to be difficult when we go up there to do a roadshow. But on that point, I have to say, I'm with you, Tam. I think Rangers will be tired. I'm not sure he can. I'm not sure Rangers are good on the front foot. That's my biggest problem with them. Aberdeen will be up for the battle. Which again, a lot of people get miffed at why you can get up for a game, certain games. But I think they'll be up for the battle. But I just can't work out, and Barry's probably pulling his hair out on. They can't take a game to someone. They'll leave themselves exposed.
Yeah, I think it depends how Aberdeen set up. If Aberdeen set up to go and have a go at Rangers in the games then a bit more open, I think that suits Rangers. I think you've seen it in games against Celtic and some of the European games. The more space there is, and the better Rangers play. When they tend to have trouble is against this sort of low block teams that come and sit in and then try and work them the week. When they've got to try and move teams about is when they've kind of toiled domestically. 2-2.
Yeah, I agree with you. What are you going for?
2-1.
2-1 Rangers. Kenny says, it's not a myth. You haven't picked Dons in 7 weeks. Now they're measuring when you haven't picked them as well, which is great. Tam and I are absolutely...
Aberdeen are playing Aberdeen reserves. She wouldn't pick them either.
Absolutely. So, Alison, at the end of the day, Tam, it takes the heat off us. Celtic against Kilmarnock. Celtic are 6 points away from the title ahead of this game against Kilmarnock. If Celtic win and Rangers lose, as we mentioned, Aberdeen the following day, they'll be officially champions for the 4th season. Now, if Rangers, you're wondering about them, Brendan must be looking and saying, what Celtic am I going to get today? Because certainly St Johnstone have had something to play for, and they got that win last week. But interestingly enough, before we get to that, Brendan, as ever, is just now coming into his own. If you're waiting on your tweet shortly, then believe me, I'm waiting on my tweet. Because, and look at Ali actually going into a sweat. She hates it when the last thing she needs is me telling the truth. So Brendan Rodgers, this is what he said. No, I think change is needed. We'll bring players in to challenge the squad and the team for the summer. That's natural at any team. You need the freshness. It is either that or the manager goes. You cannot be at a club for a long period of time with the same group of players. And likewise, the same group of players need a different voice, maybe. Ali, he started again.
It's very interesting. It kind of takes me back to Brendan's first spell when we had the Terminado press conference, when we were talking about transfer windows and activity, and he said if a certain scenario unfolded, it would be Terminado. I think it's a very interesting press conference, and I'll say that on the fact that we weren't there. You're not hearing it, and sometimes when you miss nuances of tone, things can get misinterpreted when you're reading something in black and white. So I will say that before we start to discuss it. But certainly I think when you hear those quotes, I think if you're a Celtic fan, it would make you a little bit anxious for a manager who has, 1 year left on his contract? I think it would maybe just make you prick your ears up and think about what might be coming next.
Yeah, I'm wondering how he's going to orchestrate it. The last thing you need is to tell the truth in a situation like this, because if you do, you end up getting barred. That's the way they operate. So, quite simply, I'm looking at Brendan Rodgers right now and I'm thinking to myself, you're either going to sign an extension because you're getting your way, or you're going to have to work out your departure shortly.
Yeah, I can see him doing 1 more year, Peter, at Celtic, and then I think he'll move on. That's just my personal opinion. I think that when you look at this season, I think they'll win the treble, and I think they've got to a knockout game in Europe. To go and better that again next season is going to take a lot of money, and I think that in the summer he'll be wanting big players in. Obviously spent 9 million on Ida, 11 million on Engels. That's the type of players that he'll be looking. He'll be going, right, I want another £10 million player, I want a £15 million player. If you want us to improve on what we've done last season, we need these players in to challenge the ones we've got, and I'm not sure Celtic will do that. So I don't see him signing the new contract. I think he'll do another year at Celtic, and then I think he'll be on his way.
What's saying, I've done my 3 years?
I think he'll do his 3 years, Peter. He's worked his contract, and that'll be him. And listen, there's a lot of rumours down south about Tottenham and different clubs, and I think he'd fancy another crack at the Premiership in England. So yeah. I think he'll do another year at Celtic, and I think he'll go.
Interestingly enough, Celt says on our feed, if he does another midnight flit, he won't be welcome back in Glasgow. Brian says, Brendan Rodgers looked thoroughly fed up in his press conference. I predict he'll be away season after next. And Aurora says, why do we never see Brendan Rodgers in video on PLZ? Is he not a fan of the show? No, we're just barred, Aurora. We're barred for telling the truth, which most of them in there agree with. But nevertheless, when Brendan orchestrates the departure, I'll have my tweet ready, Tam. I'm absolutely buzzing at the thought of it.
On your individual account?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. When I leave PLZ.
There's a few bookmarked, tweets bookmarked.
Absolutely. By the way, can I just say, and
I'll be coming out tomorrow.
I have to say this, and I know I joke about the tweet and everything, but what we did mention when he came back, you know what it's like. Nobody reads the whole column, Ali, because they're incensed by the sub. The headline on it, but quite simply, he's a really good coach, and that's exactly what I'd written. He's back. He's a really good coach. He has to win over the Celtic fans. His remit is quite simply he's back because the train was at the station where he didn't have a job, and he was the best option that Celtic had to coax back to Celtic Park. He's a good coach. The remit was get us to a knockout stage. That's basically what the board would have said. Get us to a knockout stage. Take it to another level there, because domestically you're going to win the league. Rangers can't match you financially. We'll back you and get us to that. Now, for me personally, looking at Brendan as a coach, I think he's a great coach. I thought the performance against Bayern Munich was the best I'd seen in about 20 years of watching Celtic. I'm going back to, I think I've got to mention Neil Lennon, Gordon Strachan produced great performances, Martin O'Neill as well. But it was great football to watch that night in the Allianz Arena. And I agree with you. I think he's basically in a situation now where he's got to that point again where, as a good coach...
How can he do more?
No, it's not that. It's not that point. The point he's at is the same as he was at the last time, which is this is a board who have a ceiling point in the ambition, and he wants them to take that next step, and they will not do it.
I can't believe that would be anything new. I think Celtic's ceiling really comes down to financial choices and decisions, whatever you think of that. I think it's a very clear remit. I don't think there would have been any ambiguity about it. I don't think when the conversation was had with Brendan Rodgers about coming back for a second stint, I think there would have been no significant change. I think he would have known what the resources are.
There is a significant change though, Ali. I'm going to flip it, because you have to have balance, and you have to be fair with the board and with Brendan Rodgers if we're going to offer any kind of a debate on this. The board, to their credit, have backed him. You spent what is it, £11 million on Arne Engels, 9 million on Adamida. So to their credit,
Celtic board, to be fair, if you go back, the Celtic board have spent money. There's a mythology about it being a very parsimonious board. If you go back across the last decade and look at the transfer fees and outlets, there has been money spent. Edward was €9 million too. The strategy is clear, and it is clear with Engels too. You spend money on young, talented players that you can develop and subsequently sell on. It's not a huge secret. It's the same kind of strategy that has been in place. What they're not going to probably do is go and spend €15 million maybe on a guy at 28 or 29 that you know is oven ready to walk into your first team, might be Champions League ready, but who you're not going to make any money on down the line. They're going to come and sign a 3-year contract, and the peak years or best years and in Glasgow. That would be a difference in strategy. What Celtic have done isn't really particularly different.
Yeah, I slightly disagree on the fact that they had a ceiling point with certain amount of money that they would spend, and they kept going for these potential one for the future.
Tell you what one was different was Ida. I think people are very, very critical of Peter Lawwell and how Celtic were run under Peter Lawwell, but had Peter Lawwell still been in charge at Celtic when Adam Ida went in on loan, there would have been a clause agreed. Celtic wouldn't have paid £9 million last summer for Ida, because the clause would have been agreed when he came on loan what the fee was for him last summer.
That's on the basis that you think he's not in charge, Ali. That's for another programme. Anyway, so we're now.
We'll be getting back in any time soon then.
Yeah. Well, that's not a critical. That's an observation. That's just me calling it as it is. And by the way, it's a board that we're being fair with, who've spent the money, but we're asked to assess what he's saying. This manager speaks and asks, if you look at Brendan Rodgers in the last 6 months, every one of his lines is delivered for you to read between the lines. He is measured, he knows what he's saying it in a certain way, and you look at it, and the board know that as well. They'll rein him in, but they'll say these are the parameters you work under. And I think they backed him with Ida. Ida hasn't worked out for him. I think Ida's not stepped up to the plate. He's not been a complete failure, but he's not what they hoped for £9 million. And I also say to you, for £11 million, I don't think Engels is the real deal for them either. So, but they have backed the manager, but the manager wants that next step, and it's the same thing that Martin O'Neill wanted when they got to the UEFA Cup final. Look at the side, take it to another level, and
It's
they
going
said,
to take serious money, but
yeah,
I
well,
also
this is
wonder
it, this is
if
it.
it's a frustration, not so much over strategy and finances as it is in terms of operational level. I think just now you look at the way that Celtic are set up in terms of how the recruitment is done. I wonder if there are some frustrations there. And the first time I think you would have been properly alerted to that really would have been in January. Now, the final weekend of the January transfer window, when it was very clear that Kyogo was going to reign, Celtic were at Motherwell and Brendan Rodgers came in at Fir Park and basically more or less said, I expect that if he goes, there is a replacement there. And if you were sitting as an observer listening, you think, well, quite clearly there's someone in the pipeline. They'll rubber stamp Kyogo's departure, which had been in the offing since the summer. They'll let him go, and there's a replacement already there. The fact that there was no replacement, I think, was the first time where you raised an eyebrow and thought that will be a source of frustration because you've allowed a striker to go and you're now one down.
Okay, come up against Kilmarnock. Kelly not out of it, and Derek McInnes really has a job on his hands. And again, everybody's talking about VAR, everybody's talking about decisions that were made. I think Willie Collum deserves tremendous credit for being so transparent, making decisions, making calls on people's forum. And Alan Muir's been binned after some high-profile errors, and Derek McInnes is not surprised.
Muir's a very experienced and has shown over a period of time to be a brilliant referee. He's a really good referee, and obviously there's a precedent there being set. It's no surprise to me. It was two high-profile games, and whether they feel the need to. There's been bigger VAR mistakes made with teams like ourselves and St Mirren's and Motherwell and all the rest of it. But two high-profile games, maybe it's quite convenient to do that. I don't know. I don't know the ins and outs yet. But all I would say in Alan Muir's defence, he's been a very good referee for a long period of time.
Okay, that's Derek McInnes' take on it. What's your prediction, Tam?
2-0 to Celtic.
2-1.
I think 3-0 Celtic.
Okay. Dundee United against St Johnstone. United sit 5th. Great for Jim Goodwin. He's worked wonders, and I think he deserves tremendous credit. There was a period, Ali, where the United fans were moaning about him as well.
Yeah, I think he's been excellent this season. I think a fantastic campaign. He's done what he set out to do when he came up from the Championship. He'd made it clear he didn't want to just be competing and it would just be enough to stay in the league. He wanted to go and fight at the top end of the table. I think fantastic season so far, and I think he'll want to kind of keep it going between now and the end of the campaign and finish up in amongst the European spots. I would think St Johnstone, you would expect that if you were Simo Valakari, you would be saying this week, you can't go out and beat Celtic. You can't produce a performance like that and then let the standard slip in subsequent weeks. They're fighting for their lives. They're not out of it by any means just yet. I think he'll be desperate for the same kind of battling qualities that you saw at McDermott Park last weekend.
It's a tough one to call, isn't it? Because I never thought I'd say this, but by the way, if St Johnstone get out of this division, they're going to be a loss because he's been a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, I think he's very positive, Peter. I think you've seen before and after games, you know, how positive he is, win, lose or draw. I think he'd be a good guy to work under. I think that he doesn't feel sorry for himself when things go wrong. He stuck to his principles of playing out from the back a little bit. They've done it successfully against Celtic last week. They defended well. They were a threat at the other end as well against Celtic. So, yeah, it is a tough one to call because Dundee United have been pretty good at home this season. And St Johnstone coming off the back of a big win. But I think Dundee United will just scrape it. I think they'll win. I think they've still got aspirations, as Alison said, to finish in 3rd or 4th and getting a European place. So I'll go for a narrow 2-1 win for Dundee United. Okay,
it's an interesting one, Ali, because if you look at that big win for St Johnstone, again, their form, if you look at it, is 1 defeat in 6, 3 wins. Mm-hmm. He's really got something out of him. Do you know what? I fancy them. I'm going to go 2-1 St Johnstone. I fancy St Johnstone too. I think he's getting a tune out of them. I wonder if the fact that they were so adrift at one point, I think it was 10 points at one point, that there's a freedom that comes with that when you look as though all is lost, almost, that you think, well, you've got nothing more to lose, go out and give it your best shot,
be bold. I like his energy. I like his enthusiasm.
Do you like his earring?
I don't like his earring, no. But I like his...
I think he's really quirky. I love him.
But I think he's got great... He's so positive. He's like, and he's got tons of energy. And I think the players are very, very clearly bought in to what it is that he's trying to do. I think he might... I think I wouldn't be overly surprised if he managed to orchestrate some kind of survival.
Great escape.
This season. It really would be. Having been 10 points adrift at one point. But I fancy them to win.
Are you tipping him to get the great escape?
Well, I will refer back on Monday on that.
Yeah. If he wins this one, you think he's got the great escape?
Yeah, I think if he wins this one, then it obviously depends on other results, but teams around him could start getting very jittery.
You've been a wee bit cagey, McConnell, I have to tell you, because you know the mechanics of this show now, and you know that if you've got an opinion, you know, it's out there, you know, so you've been a wee bit cagey.
It's too early.
Johnstone will stay up, basically, she's saying.
Yeah, that's what she's saying, but we're not quite getting there. We'll drag it out of her shortly. Hibs against Dundee, the Hibbies. It's just all great for them, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really positive at the minute, Peter. It's a great time to be a Hibs fan, and I don't think I've said that too many times in the last 3 or 4 seasons. Brilliant run of form, going to Ibrox last week, winning comfortably. You know, this would be a game in the past you would think, oh, they've just beat Rangers, they're playing Dundee at home, that's a banana skin, no Hibs it and all this nonsense. But you're just so consistent at the minute. They're grinding out results when they're not playing well. And I think they'll win again. I think they'll win. I think they'll beat Dundee. And I think they'll go further ahead in the race for third. But just really, really good at the minute to be a Hibs supporter watching the team play. You know, they're so organised, Peter, they're hard to break down, they've got pace in the counter. You know, and David Gray deserves enormous credit for where they were the last time they played Dundee. 4-1 at Dens Park, and he looked as if he was going to lose his job to now be sitting in third. Brilliant run of form, and if he finishes third, then he'll be in the run for manager here, I'm sure, as well. So, comfortable win for Hibs for me, 3-1.
Yeah, OK, I'm going to go the Hibbies to win it narrowly 2-1. It's a battle of goals, isn't it? Boyle firing in all cylinders, Simon Murray firing in all cylinders.
I'm going for Hibs.
Yeah.
Can't see beyond Hibs.
OK. Again, just as we mentioned this, because obviously we've got some great features coming up, and we'll get some big news next week on PLZ Soccer that I hope you will embrace. Don't forget that the coverage right across this whole year, you've supported us no end. It's been absolutely superb. The figures we've been delivering right across our podcasts and all of our reporters out there at games. You've been embracing some of our mini documentaries, our one-to-ones. Tam's been out there interviewing people on the Footballers Football Show. And the Women's Football Show is just going from strength to strength, and we really are appreciative of your support. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel to join the football family, and everything that we are delivering for you now is absolutely free, and that will stay that way. But there's some big news that I hope that you will embrace coming up next week. So one other thing I've got to mention is, you know, Ayr United against Falkirk, you know, Scott Brown could put a little spanner in the works, but Livingston, if they slip up, suddenly the Bairns could be looking at the return to the Scottish Premiership.
Yeah, I think it's very exciting in the Championship. I think Falkirk would have a lot to offer. I think coming up, just the way that they play, and I think, I can't see past Falkirk either.
Yeah, just one little footnote, Mo Salah.
You'll be happy.
Oh, delighted.
You'll be happy. Was that the big one you wanted? Would you prefer him to the other two?
I want to see Van Dijk stay. I'm delighted Mo Salah's staying. I'm amazed and absolutely gobsmacked that people are wanting rid of Andy Robertson. I'm absolutely gobsmacked.
Yeah, I've seen that. I think he's had a wee dip this season, Peter, but he's getting written off for a few Liverpool supporters. But I think they will sign a left back in the summer, somebody to come in and challenge him, because I don't think the boy Tsimikas is up to it. But yeah, that's great business for Liverpool. I mean, if you were to go and try and sign a guy of Salah's quality, how much would it cost you? So I think when you got something like that there, you weigh him in, and looks as if he'll finish his career at Liverpool, and hopefully Van Dijk joins him. Yeah,
I mean, it just shows you how good he is, because if you were looking at your greatest ever 11, suddenly Salah's got to be in there.
Yeah, greatest ever Liverpool 11.
Yeah,
that's what you're talking.
Yeah, got to be in there. He's, you know, you're
anyway.
Yeah, well, you're shifting.
Part of the conversation.
Part of the conversation. Wow, even I've got him in, Ali. You're a hard woman today, by the way. Not even letting Salah in, but a great signing for them. Okay, I am at this moment just going to say to you, hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel. Sunny weather outside all weekend. Hopefully it's going to continue. If you want to keep up to date with everything that's happening, if you download the PLZ Soccer app, you'll get all the breaking news at your fingertips, and you'll get all that unique video content, and you get the news north and south of the border, and we also keep you up to date with what's happening in Europe. Okay, Tam and I are going to go away and put on something maybe yellow, white, whatever, and start to match the summery feel that Alison has got us in the mood for. Thanks to Alison, brilliant, to Tam as well, and from myself, Peter Martin, thanks to you for listening and watching.